Good morning. I almost said good afternoon. I'm used to doing virtual user group meetings. This is not a virtual user group meeting. This is Paul Purdue. I am a nerd, and this is one of our Coffee Pot webinar series, which are in the mornings, which I'm just discovering. Now, today we're talking about something kind of cool, so I'm going to get nerdy on you and be very excited because, like I said, it's kind of cool. This reminds me of the fact that what my son thinks is funny or cool on Big Bang Theory does not relate in any way to what I think is funny or cool on Big Bang Theory. So if you think that what I'm saying isn't quite as excited as I do, it's because I'm probably more like Sheldon than I am like you, but we won't go there. Today we are talking about taking reports from the STI software, Tabs, PracticeMaster, Accounts Payable, General Ledger, Trust, whatever, and having them automatically distributed to people, at least in this initial incarnation, via email. It's something we call push. It's something that we've been working on for a while. It's something that's not quite fully done yet, but I wanted to get people in on what we're doing so that you, the viewer, can help us to determine which direction we want to go, what's more important to you than certain other things. Should we do this? Should we do that? How do we want to do this? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out the technology for you and show it to you and explain how it works and show you what it can do, and then hope that you will give me feedback. So without further ado, I'm going to press all of the correct magic buttons in order to get out of this PowerPoint thing. And I'm going to go, I don't know where I'm going to go. I'm going to go to my desktop because the report scheduler is running. That's kind of our working title. I want to call it push. And I'm going to explain that while I pull this up. Push implies that you don't have to go get information. Push implies that information is pushed to you or to the person that it's supposed to go to. Pull implies that that information is there, but you have to go get it. Most of what you're used to in reporting right now is called pull technology, although you'd probably only hear that term from somebody who's geeky like me. Pull technology simply means there's lots of information in Tabs and AP and GL and Trust and PracticeMaster, but you've got to go get it. Push technology means that this information is sent to you. Now, let's take a look at how that works. This is the report scheduler. I'm going to show you how it works, then we're going to talk about the structure of it, then we're going to talk about some things that we're planning to do, and last but not least, we're going to open up the lines for any questions if people want to offer feedback right then and there. But this is it. I am going to go schedule a report. When I click on scheduled reports, that button under here, this window pops up and it is currently empty. You can schedule as many reports going to as many people as you want using the report scheduler. I am simply going to edit, file, create new. I'm still kind of new at this myself. And this is the scheduling window. Now keep in mind, this is a prototype. It works very well. These things down here are going to change. I'm going to start with a very simple report. I am going to list WIP totals by the primary attorney for the matter, and I'm going to show the amount. And I'm going to do it for the last 7 days as opposed to month to date or year to date. Now, how these things are selected is still being changed. Maybe you'll want to see all 3 columns, and we're probably going to change this to checkboxes. Maybe you're going to want to see originating and primary, but maybe you're also going to want to see it sorted by working attorney. So a lot of different things are happening here, but this is the functionality. So just very quickly, I'm going to call this WIP totals, or I can call it whatever I want. Keep in mind, I'm scheduling something for a particular person. So this is WIP totals for Paul, and it's going to go to Paul at paulpurdue.com. That's a little easier than paul.purdue@attorneycomputersystems.com. So make note of that, or just remember it. You just have to remember that it's like the school, not the chicken, and then you'll never forget my email address, because that's how you can ask questions or offer feedback after we're done here. And so I'm saying that I want to call this scheduled report this. I want to email it to Paul Purdue at this email address. This is what the functionality that I'm using for the last 7 days, sorted by primary attorney and showing the amount. I'm going to create this report, and this is the scheduler part. The thing about push technology is it gets pushed to people at a predetermined time. So currently, in our prototype, we're supporting daily, weekly, monthly, and annually. Most often this is going to be daily. We'll probably add with daily the ability to specify weekdays only, things like that. We've already built the logic into the system that if you're looking at a report that includes yesterday's totals and it's Monday, it's going to look at Friday. All those things are built in or will be. And I'm going to start it, right now, today, right now. But normally you'd say something like start tomorrow and run it every day at 8 a.m. Okay? Now I'm going to actually trigger this report to run, so I don't have to worry about the schedule. But I simply want to show you that this schedule window here allows you to say, this is when I want it to run, if it's going to run automatically, which is obviously what it's going to do because, as I said, it's push technology. We want every attorney to see their yesterday's hours every morning at 8 o'clock. We want every attorney Friday at 5 p.m. to get a list of the top accounts receivable for their primary clients. Those are the sorts of things that this is meant for. And we'll talk about some other applications other than just tabs reports in a minute, but let's get to seeing how it works. So now I have one report scheduled, and it's scheduled for some odd hour, 11:10 every morning. Like I say, that's not what we're here to show, but instead to just talk about a little bit. And now I'm going to trigger it because I want to show you. In a minute, we're going to see. Jan warned me about this, that I should try out which report I was going to do before I did it. Did I listen to him? No, of course not. So we're going to run this again. It kind of reminds me of sometime in the 90s when Bill Gates got the blue screen of death when he was introducing a new version of Windows. That's kind of how I feel right now. So I'm going to go ahead and redo this report real quick. What I might do is simply edit this report. Didn't do that right. File. Edit. Yep. Okay, maybe I just need to double click on it. Edit this report and choose something different. I'm going to choose aged whip. And I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that this one works. Because the only one that I did test before was accounts receivable. And since this is our real client data, I decided that was not a good thing to do. We're going to trigger again. There we go. That simply means, and this is something you would never see. We'll talk about that in a second. But this, to me, means that this email's been processed manually. Normally, it would be something that happened at a predetermined time and has been sent. And if I go look at my email box, one of the things I have here is aged whip. Okay? So here is work in process for our clients 0 through 30, 31 through 60, 61 through 90, 91 through 120, 121 through 180, and 180 plus. With the client ID sorted by primary timekeeper, that's me. Client name, so we've got us in here as well. And as we scroll through here, these are just some people that we're doing work for. And these are their aged whip balances. You'll notice that we bill, if you're a client of ours, you know we bill every week. And so we don't really have whip that sits around. The only time whip sits around for us is when we're doing a project like a report that's not going to be built till it's done. So this is an example of the aged whip report coming to me via email, scheduled automatically. I triggered it manually, but it would be something that would come at a certain point, scheduled for perhaps every day at 8 o'clock, perhaps every Friday at 4 p.m., whatever it is. And we also have the ability to include the same report in a PDF or the same data in an Excel spreadsheet, which looks a little funny because of the spacing, but if I do this, if I do, there we go. If I do this, there we go. Everything lines up perfectly, okay? So we have data that comes to us either in an email as body, in an email as a PDF attachment, or in an email as an export report built in. Now let's go look at some things here, because I want to, now that you've seen this, and now that you can kind of visualize what's going on, I want to show you what some of these things mean. So I'm going to go back into the scheduled reports. We're going to pull up this and we're going to talk about some things. What I just showed you is functions. And we are busy building all sorts of functions into this system. Now we're also building it in such a way that you can, instead of having one email that contains one function, like aged WIP, that you can stack them on top of each other to create kind of an emailed dashboard. So maybe I want aged WIP, plus I want top cash receipts, plus I want billing totals, plus I want summary accounts receivable, all in the same report, going to Paul Purdue. They're probably called, we call it something different, something like Paul's dashboard, every Friday at 4 p.m. Okay, so that's functionality that we are currently developing. This prototype functionality just lets us choose one at a time. But let's talk about this. We have these functions that are built in. We have the ability to specify a query, and that's a nerd term. It simply means it's how we get this stuff to come out. What we just saw when we looked at the WIP totals was really, or the aged WIP was really a query, okay? A query, a SQL query, it said something like select these fields from this file and where this equals that and whatever, whatever. Well, so what we want out of the report writer, or what should I say, what you want isn't there, so you can simply come to us and say, well, what I want it lined up a little differently. I want this column over here. I want it sorted differently. I want it for the last 21 days for whatever reason instead of the last, current month or year to date or whatever. We just write a query and we plop it in here and we schedule it appropriately, and you've got that. So some of you have come to us already and you've had us write very complex reports that have totals and subtotals, and they're grouped this way, and they have columns that can't be expressed in a single query, and they're just complex. So we've also added the functionality in our report scheduler, or what I call push, to take one of those reports that we may have already written for you or that we may be going to write for you, and simply call it and pass it whatever parameters it needs so that we can run those reports on a regular basis, pushed to your email, scheduled. Okay? So that's the difference between these things, and it's important to note. Now, we haven't really come up with pricing yet, but whatever model we choose is going to come with all of these things, and this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg is what's going to be included. But if it doesn't suit your needs, for very little additional cost, we can write a query for you. We can kind of tweak one of these functions and write a query for you so that that query can be used instead of one of the built-in functions. Or if you say, oh, I got some really intricate reports and I know it's going to cost me a lot more money, but I want you to write that report, and then I want you to build it into the scheduler so I don't have to go print it for Bob and Joanne and Cindy every Friday. I just want it to go to them. So that's the push technology. Now, let me go into a couple more details. This program, as it looks right now, I want to get out of here, really is two things built into one. And actually, Jan, who's the developer working on this project, has already broken it out, but what I'm showing you is pulled together. It's actually a scheduler that can run conceivably from any computer on the network. And then it's the actual thing that wakes up every time it needs to send a report and sends that report after it's been scheduled, and that loads on your server. Okay, so that thing gets installed on your server and it runs, whenever it needs to. Actually, it's running all the time, I should say. It loads as what we call a service. I'm going to talk nerd for a second. It loads as what we call a service on your server, the same server that has Tabs3 and PracticeMaster. And it sits there running as a service, meaning they can run even when the server's not logged into. If the server's just sitting there in that state that if you've ever looked at your server where it says press Control-Alt-Delete to log in, it'll still be running. And it will be waiting to send these reports. So it's actually two things. It's that thing that runs on your server, and it's the scheduler that goes on Mary Lou's computer or whoever the person is that controls the scheduler and makes sure that the attorneys get their reports at the right time and things like that. Now, so that's important to note. It must run on your server. Not only does it run on Mary Lou's machine because she's the person that's scheduling the reports, and by the way, the scheduler can run on Mary Lou's and Bob's computer, and it doesn't matter to us. But this other part also needs to be running as a service on your server. It also needs the ODBC drivers, which if you have Platinum SQL, you have, and they're very fast. And if you don't have Platinum SQL, you would need to pay the $99 plus shipping license cost for the ODBC drivers so that you can load those drivers on the server, so probably so that we can load them on the server and run that part of the program that needs them. And probably the most important thing to tell you, if you haven't already guessed it, these are not Tabs3 reports that we're sending. It's not like our program is going to go into Tabs3 and find a report like the cash receipts report or whatever report and send it. So it's not like this technology, this push technology, this report scheduler technology that we have developed is going to go in and run reports from Tabs. I want to make sure I'm very clear about that. It's not something that takes these reports and simply sends them to the right people. It takes reports that we write or functionality that's built into the program or simple queries that we write if you have a need beyond the functions that are built in, but it's not a full-fledged report. So I can't state that enough. You need to, if you have complex reporting needs, you need to understand that you would need to pay for those reports. That's something, it's not something that's reaching into Tabs or reaching into accounts payable or reaching into GL and getting these reports out. Now, however, since we're developing this, that means that a lot of our standard reports that we've developed over the years for other clients, sometimes for many clients, we're going to start building in too. So there will be a certain amount of functionality, as you saw when we go to the report scheduler. There's a lot in there. I mean, if we go in here, there's a good dozen reports in there now, and this will probably be more like several dozen reports that are built in. And as I said, they'll be stackable. So you can say, well, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, stacked up into a dashboard that gets emailed, has contents of an email on a regular basis. So there will be functionality built in, but it's not coming from here. So keep that in mind. If you say, well, all I want is a slight change to the WIP report that's already in Tabs, well, from our perspective, that's a totally new report, okay? Because if it's not something that's built into the report scheduler, it has to be added. With that said, I'm going to make sure that Patty doesn't have any questions. Do you have any questions, Patty?
There are no questions, Paul.
I have a question. Patty, do these pants make my hips look big?
I will not answer that question, Paul.
Okay. Thank you. Next month in our webinar series, our Coffee Pot webinar series, we will be talking about the Outlook Sync Monitor, which is another application of our push technology. If you have Outlook Sync running, which you can have either running automatically with something called the PM Exchange connector, or you can have running in a less automatic mode, but it's still happening without anybody being aware of it, using the regular Outlook Sync. If you've ever encountered a situation where one of your attorneys has said, well, I'm not getting my calendar synced anymore, and you go into their computer and it says Outlook Sync suspended, well, that's pull technology right there. That means somebody has to notice that and tell somebody else who has to go look to see why that's suspended. So we've developed a sync monitor that monitors the Outlook Sync log, which is another file that we can report on. and sends warnings specifically when certain things happen, like it's not syncing for Bob anymore, or it's not syncing for anybody anymore if you're using the PM Exchange connector. So we'll be talking about that next month. You can tell what our topics are by simply going to our website, Attorney Computer Systems, emphasizing that S at the end of systems right there, attorneycomputersystems.com. Click on videos. When you do, if you click on it, you get this nice page that gives you a description of all of our videos. Or if you simply hover over it like that, you get a little drop down with all the videos. And so here's our Coffee Pot webinars. And if I click on that, we'll see that you're currently attending this webinar. And as you scroll down, you will see recorded versions of previous webinars. So you can always come here and see what's up and watch a webinar after it's happened. And in just a few minutes, Patty's going to press her magic button and make sure that this changes to the March topics, which, as I've already told you, is the Outlook Sync Monitor. And then this will include registration links, either here or here, to go sign up for that. Now keep in mind, there's all sorts of other stuff. We have our virtual user group meetings for Tabs and PracticeMaster and World Docs. We have the Coffee Pot webinars, which you're attending right now. We have our eBytes video series, which is Mary Jo's short little 3-4 minute videos. She records one each month on Tabs, PracticeMaster, and World Docs. So 3 each month, 1 on each topic. And we have our Paul and Mary Jo show, which is our longer format TV type show where Mary Jo and I take a very detailed function or feature of one of the products and kind of delve into it in greater detail than Mary Jo does in her eBytes. So that's that. Also, remember, you can search at any time. So if I wanted to search for reports, for instance, as soon as I start typing, it talks about what my options are, or if I just hit the search button, it'll take me to a list of all the content that deals with reports. So please take advantage of this. Mary Jo and I spend a lot of time doing these, and I know a lot of people watch them. Some might even be considered to have a problem, but we won't go there. But please do take advantage of it. Everybody have a good rest of the day and a good weekend, and we will see you in March. Thanks much.